Good afternoon, and I welcome all of you back because I think it says something about the safety, the well-being of female politicians, as well as how they represent themselves and how others represent them from both sides of the political spectrum. That things look incredibly grey is the word I want to use because I know there's been recent news about Diane Abbott, who's going to obviously stand her ground. She may have had the whip restored, but apparently she's been told not to run as an MP for Keir Starmer. I believe that's where I got this. I think that's what the story is at this point. But and as much as I want to say right now is that I admire Diane Abbott, but they've got to realise that they're supposed to be on the same team. And if I was at this point, I would be saying, quit the arguing, let her do it. And you know what, Diane Abbott, despite all of her controversies and the things that she probably knows she should have done, she's had nearly over 40 years of experience in politics. You don't just turn away from stuff like that unless she was because if she was talking nonsense, then they would have cut ties with her years ago. But recently, let's think about like this. Let's put it like this: to other members of the Labour Party, the Tories have attacked Rachel Reeves because they seem to propose the idea that Rishi Sunak's mini-budget sounding tax cuts are ridiculous, and everybody is trying to tell Rachel Reeves that that this is not a mini-budget sounding statement, but we'll get to mini-budgets in a second. They've tried to attack Angela Rayner because James Daly seemed to tip off Greater Manchester Police that Rayner was up to no good when she had done nothing wrong whatsoever. And so Rayner, and even Carol Vorderman suggested that absolutely Rayner should be looking to prosecute James Daly for wasting police time. And now we cut to Jess Phillips, who wrote a very strongly worded letter to the Prime Minister, and I'm just going to read it in full because it concerns a convention called Lotus. Is it Enders or Eaters? But we'll find out in a second. Here's the letter in full. Dear Prime Minister, today, former Prime Minister Liz Truss, a Conservative candidate in an upcoming general election, will be interviewed on the far-right platform Lotus Eaters, founded by Carl Benjamin, an extreme far-right commentator. Benjamin has despicable views about violence against women. When I highlighted the volume of rape threats received by female MPs, including myself, Benjamin responded, "I wouldn't even rape you," later adding, "There's been an awful lot of talk about whether I would or wouldn't rape Jess Phillips. I suppose with enough pressure, I might cave, but let's be honest, nobody's got that much beer." The impact men like Benjamin have on politics cannot be understated. Men like Benjamin make few MPs live in fear, while discouraging women from standing in future, weakening our democracy in the process. You have a responsibility as leader of your party to uphold high standards among your MPs and candidates. And you have a responsibility as Prime Minister to fasten a safe environment for MPs, particularly female MPs, who face ever-increasing rates of abuse and threat. As well as these misogynistic views, Carl Benjamin has promoted the Great Replacement theory and shared fringe conspiracy theories such as the World Economic Forum is trying to control society. He recently launched the group Hearts of Oak with far-right thug Tommy Robinson. It is clear that anyone willing to appear on this hateful platform is not suitable to be a candidate for any political party. Even Reform UK deselected one of its candidates after his harmful views and work as a content creator for Lotus Eaters was exposed. If you have any decency, you will deselect Liz Truss as Conservative candidate for South West Norfolk. Anything less than this will show how weak you are and how the Conservatives Party has sunk. Yours sincerely, Jess Phillips. One or two comments are going to be needed here, and I know immediately what you're thinking. Unfortunately, Jess Phillips is under the illusion that Sunak was strong in the first place. Also, when it comes to threats and abuse that female MPs receive, You may remember the horrific murder of Miss Joan Cox, who was murdered by far-right extremists leading up to the UK referendum in which we left the European Union. She was murdered for doing her job, for pleading her case to stay in the European Union, and she was murdered for it. That's the kind of thing we have to face, ladies and gentlemen, and the thing we have to accept is that if it were up to me, listen, the second I heard about this, if I was Rishi Sunak, I would have cut ties with Liz Truss immediately. Remember, we're talking about a former Prime Minister, a former disgraced Prime Minister who lasted less than 7 weeks as Prime Minister, nearly completely toppled the economy, who has released a book that has been slammed by critics all over the UK, and finally, well, what do you expect? This is, if anything, this goes to show that if it's not just delusional people from the Conservative Party who think that they're going to win by going even farther and farther into the right, you've also got to understand the sort of contempt that probably the Conservative Party have a lot towards female Labour supporters, Labour politicians for that matter, because there's something increasingly distasteful about the way that female Labour MPs are threatened, and listen, I know that again papers will try and mock and discredit things and try and say things about other people that are completely untrue, just as the case with Angela Rayner, but this is pretty shocking. Carl Benjamin, I did not know who he was until yesterday, and to be honest, I hope to God I never ever have to meet this man in the real world. I hope to God I don't have to meet anybody for the Conservative Party in my lifetime, but you have to I wouldn't even rape Jess Phillips. I suppose with enough pressure I might cave, but let's be honest, nobody's got that much beer. What a fucking disgusting pig. And I don't feel guilty about saying that, because I'm pretty sure Carl Benjamin did not feel guilty whatsoever about what he said. But what I'm trying to demonstrate, ladies and gentlemen, is that these are the types of people you've got to be aware of. These are the types of people you've got to understand are a bigger threat to society than you will. People who say things like this and are just allowed to get away with it. Because let me tell you guys something. If this was, let's say, Tom Hanks, Michael Jackson, Tobey Maguire, if it was like any of those guys, they would have their careers, their lives, they would have been cancelled immediately. They would have never have seen the light of day without hate mobs literally roaming the streets every single day, wanting their heads on a pike. So what makes Carl Benjamin so special that he thinks he can get away with saying stuff like that? Nothing as far as nothing as far as I'm concerned. And well, there it is. What an absolute what a state we're living in, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope that this has shed some light on the situation, and well, again, this only makes me appreciate Jess Phillips and people like Jess Phillips, Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves, and Diane Abbott even more, because despite everything, they're not giving up on this, and nobody has the right to say stuff like this either. And as for Liz Truss does not fit that criteria. She's not. She may think she's clever, but no. Liz Truss is a very small woman who thinks she is above her station. Just like Boris Johnson, just like Rishi Sunak, Theresa May doesn't really fit into this. Theresa May is just sort of was completely over the hill by that point. But yeah. So. And the fact that Sunak is just sort of like laying low and not really saying anything about this. He's not just weak, but he also seems to be, condoning this as though this is fine and normal, and he's not taking any action for it. Go and fuck yourself, Richie. I'll see you guys later.